The storm rattled the ancient castle, lightning flashing against the stained glass windows as shadows danced across the throne room. King Elias stood trembling, the enchanted crown resting on the pedestal before him. His heart pounded like war drums as whispers filled the air, each word pressing into his soul. Elias said, "Why does it call to me when I fear its curse?" A sudden gust blew open the heavy doors, revealing a secret chamber where the voice of the crown grew louder. Fear clawed at him, but destiny's weight would not let him turn away. He stepped forward, each footfall echoing like a warning. In the far corner, the flames flickered into a shape, the haunting silhouette of an enemy unseen. The cursed legacy had begun, and Elias knew that this night would mark the rise or fall of his kingdom. The storm subsided slightly, leaving a low rumble as Elias walked deeper into the hidden chamber. The crown's voice echoed louder, promising power yet threatening ruin. Elias said, "I cannot let it control me, yet I cannot leave it here." His words bounced off the stone walls, carrying fear and determination in equal measure. He saw ancient runes carved in gold, each glowing faintly with a warning older than time. His hands trembled as he brushed the symbols, and the ground quaked beneath his feet. The curse was no longer a whisper, but a roaring presence in his chest, demanding he claim what was his by blood. From the shadows of the chamber, a familiar voice emerged. Master Eric, the old mentor, leaned on his staff, his eyes heavy with both wisdom and sorrow. Eric said, "Elias, the crown calls not for your strength but for your soul. You must resist its hunger." Elias turned, startled, anger flashing in his voice. "Why did you not warn me sooner?" The old man's silence was heavier than the storm outside. He had carried secrets too long, and now their weight threatened to crush them both. As Elias reeled from his mentor's words, Gareth, his loyal companion, burst into the chamber, drenched from the storm. Gareth said, "My king, soldiers gather at the gates. Something stirs in the night." Elias's heart sank. Destiny gave no time for hesitation. Gareth's eyes, fierce yet full of loyalty, searched his king's face for strength. Elias forced a breath and nodded. "Then we face what comes together." The flicker of torchlight revealed another figure, cloaked in black eyes sharp with secrets. Lord Malric stepped forward, his voice smooth as velvet. Malric said, "My king, I can guide you where others cannot. Trust me, and the crown will be yours." Elias hesitated, suspicion twisting in his gut. Gareth's hand moved to his sword, ready to strike if the stranger proved false. The chamber thickened with tension, destiny's path branching into peril. King Elias sat alone in his chamber, the storm's echoes fading into a heavy silence. His hands gripped the table, knuckles white, as the crown's voice still clawed at his mind. Elias whispered, "I fear that its curse is stronger than my will." Shadows swayed on the walls, as if mocking his weakness. His heart ached with memories of his father's fall, and he wondered if destiny had doomed him to the same fate. The crown was no mere relic. It was a burden carved into his bloodline. Yet, the kingdom's hope rested solely upon him. Elara, the sworn protector and daughter of a rival house, entered quietly. Her eyes carried fire and sorrow, a reflection of divided loyalties. Elara said, "You cannot battle shadows alone, Elias. You need allies, even if love tempts betrayal." Elias met her gaze, fear and longing entwined. "Love cannot be my weapon, nor my shield," he said, though his voice trembled. For a fleeting moment, silence bound them, and in it was a truth neither dared claim. The forbidden bond between them grew sharper in the cold silence of duty. The castle courtyard reeked of smoke and despair. Villagers cried as soldiers carried the wounded, and the whispers of rebellion grew louder. Gareth said, "My king, the people look to you, but fear spreads faster than hope." Elias felt the weight of every gaze, each face demanding salvation. He clenched his fists, hiding his trembling heart. "If I fail them," Elias thought, "then the curse wins." The cries of children echoed through the night, each sound a blade driven deeper into his soul. The kingdom was breaking, and he was its fragile thread. Master Eric led Elias into the library, shelves carved with runes and tomes steeped in dust. The old man's voice was heavy with regret. Eric said, "The crown was forged, not for glory but for control. It binds its king, as chains bind a prisoner." Elias's breath hitched, fury mixing with sorrow. "So my fate was sealed before my birth," he said bitterly. Eric lowered his eyes, ashamed. He had withheld truths too long, and each silence had become a dagger in his pupil's heart. The burden of history pressed harder. As Elias stood frozen in the weight of revelation, the chamber trembled. A gust of icy wind blew through the open window, and with it came the apparition of a guardian beast, formed of swirling silver mist. Its voice was not of words, but of riddles. The guardian warned, when power claims blood, blood must claim sacrifice. Elias's chest tightened. The prophecy was not a gift, but a threat. He staggered, fear breaking across his face. The path forward was etched in pain, and every step demanded a cost he was not ready to pay. The grand hall echoed with tension as nobles argued over the crown's power, their words sharper than blades. Lord Fenric, once loyal, slammed his fist on the table. Fenric said, "The king is weak, his crown will doom us all." Elias's chest burned with humiliation as whispers of betrayal spread like wildfire through the chamber. Gareth growled, his hand gripping his sword. "You dare dishonor him here?" Elias raised his hand to silence Gareth, though fear rippled beneath his calm mask. The betrayal was not at the gates, it was within his very core. Alone in the chamber once more, Elias approached the crown, its glow pulsing like a living heart. The whispers became screams searing into his mind. Elias gasped, clutching his temples. "Enough!" he shouted, but the crown mocked him, its power feeding on his doubt. His reflection warped in the polished metal, no longer the king he knew but a twisted version bound by chains of light. Tears burned his eyes as he staggered back. Could he truly resist what was forged into his blood? Or would the crown devour him, as it had those before? The castle erupted with chaos as assassins cloaked in black struck under cover of night. Gareth shielded Elias, clashing steel against shadow. Gareth shouted, "Stay behind me." His blade rang like thunder as he struck down one attacker, but another's dagger found his side. Blood stained his armor as he staggered, yet he refused to fall. Elias cried out, his heart tearing as Gareth forced a smile. "A wound means nothing if you live, my king." Loyalty had cost blood, and Elias felt the weight of sacrifice pierce deeper than any blade. Deep within the castle's crypt, Malric knelt before a hooded figure cloaked in shadows, the true enemy revealed. The antagonist spoke in a low growl. "The boy falters, as we knew he would." Malric smirked, his loyalty now unmasked. "He trusts me still, and when the crown breaks him, the throne will be yours." The shadow's hand rose, darkness curling like smoke. Elias's struggle was no accident. It had been orchestrated by betrayal. The greatest wound came not from blades, but from those who swore allegiance with poisoned tongue. Bloodied and weary, Elias stood in the ruined courtyard, the cries of his people echoing in the night. He looked at Gareth, wounded yet unbowed, and at Elara, whose eyes begged him not to falter. Elias said, "If I turn away now, the crown owns me. But if I rise, I may yet own it." His voice trembled, but resolve took root in the cracks of his fear. The storm of betrayal, doubt, and loss would not drown him. He would face his cursed legacy, even if it demanded his soul. The cursed forest loomed ahead, its trees twisted like claws reaching for the sky. Fog clung to the ground, thick and suffocating. Elias led the way, though fear churned in his stomach. Gareth limped behind, still bleeding but refusing to slow. Elara whispered, "These woods devour the weak, Elias. Do not let them taste your fear." Shadows moved where no creatures should be, and whispers rose from the roots themselves. Every step felt heavier, as if the forest weighed down their very souls. This was no path of mortals. It was a trial of the damned. In the forest's heart, silver light revealed the guardian beast once more, its form shifting between wolf and mist. It spoke in riddles. One life must be offered for power to awaken. Elias trembled, anger burning his throat. You ask me to choose who dies. The guardian's eyes glowed, its silence crueler than any answer. Gareth staggered forward, blood dripping into the soil. If it must be me, then let my life free you, Elias. The words pierced deeper than steel, forcing Elias to confront the cost of kingship. That night, by a dying campfire, Elara sat beside Elias, her eyes glistening with tears. Elara said, "You cannot carry this alone, Elias. My heart belongs to you, though it breaks every oath I swore." Elias turned sharply, his chest tightening. "If you love me, you risk everything. Your honor, your family, your life." The flames cracked, mirroring the fire in her gaze. In that fragile moment, the forbidden bond between them was spoken at last, a truth that threatened to undo them both. Master Eric stood apart, leaning on his staff as the firelight deepened his weary lines. He whispered, "I once guided a king who sought to wield the crown. I failed him, and the kingdom bled for it." Elias turned, shocked by the confession. "You knew its hunger all along, and you let me walk blind." Eric lowered his eyes. "I thought you stronger, or perhaps I hoped the crown would consume no more." The old man's shame hung heavy, revealing that even wisdom carried the scars of failure. From the shadows stepped Malric, his cloak glistening with dew, his smile sharp as a blade. Malric said, "Your allies weaken you, Elias. Trust me, and the crown will answer only to you." Gareth's hand went to his sword, fury flashing in his eyes. "Traitor's tongue drips poison," he growled. Elias froze, torn between suspicion and need. Malric's presence coiled like a serpent, promising salvation while reeking of betrayal. The circle of firelight seemed to close in, and Elias realized the enemy he feared most was already within his circle. Elias stood before the crown once more, its glow searing through the chamber like fire. The whispers grew into screams, each word sharper than steel. Suddenly he understood. The crown did not feed power, it fed on him. His self-doubt was its feast, his fear its strength. Elias staggered back, gasping. "The curse is me. My blood, my weakness. It fuels this monstrosity." The revelation burned worse than any blade. The crown's power was no gift. It was a prison forged by his ancestors to chain their own kings. The legacy was nothing but shackles. By the moonlit river, Elara's tears betrayed her secret. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I am no daughter of loyalty, Elias. My blood runs with your enemy's line." Elias froze, his heart cleaved in two. She looked away, ashamed. "I was sworn to watch you fall, but instead I found myself bound to you." His chest tightened, torn between betrayal and love. So every step, every word, was it truth or a lie? Elara's silence was heavier than any answer. What bound them was no longer just love. It was a war within their hearts. In the forest clearing, shadows closed in as arrows rained from above. Master Eric raised his staff, light erupting from its tip. He shouted, "Run, Elias, my path ends here." Elias's cry tore from his throat, but Eric's face was calm, serene. A king must learn sacrifice, even if it is his teacher's life. The explosion of light consumed the attackers, shaking the ground. When the brilliance faded, Eric was gone, leaving only the echo of his staff shattered on the earth. Elias fell to his knees, grief and fury twisting together, the mentor's final lesson etched in loss. In the crypt of shadows, Malric revealed the truth with venom in his voice. "Do you not see, Elias? Your enemy is no monster. It is your kin. The antagonist is your father's brother, the betrayed heir." Elias's blood turned to ice. The antagonist stepped forward, armor gleaming with darkness, his eyes filled with sorrow and rage. "I was cast aside, Elias. The crown was mine, yet they gave it to your father." The truth carved into Elias's soul. The The war was not just for power, it was a war born of blood and betrayal. By the shattered altar, Elias pieced together the prophecy's cruel core. His voice broke. The crown was born of betrayal. It was forged by blood spilled in hatred. The antagonist's laughter echoed bitterly. And so it shall end with blood once more. Gareth steadied himself, wounds burning, and growled, then let it end with courage, not chains. Elias's hands shook as he touched the crown, realizing it was not a symbol of kingship, but of endless cycles of ruin. The greatest enemy was not the crown itself, but the lies that bound his bloodline to its curse. The castle walls shook as horns of war echoed across the night. Fires raged on the horizon, the enemy's banners black against the storm. Elias stood on the battlements, drenched in rain, his people below trembling in fear. He raised his sword high, voice breaking but strong. Tonight we fight not for the crown but for our lives, our children, our freedom. Gareth and Elara stood beside him, their eyes fierce with loyalty and love. The people cheered through tears, finding courage in his defiance. Boy King had become their rallying cry. The gates burst open, and the antagonist's army poured into the capital, their black steel glinting with rain. Arrows rained down, clashing steel filling the air with chaos. Elias charged into the fray, his crown glowing faintly as if feeding on the storm. Gareth fought like a beast despite his wounds, while Elara's blade cut through shadows. The clash of blood and fire engulfed the streets, each cry of pain a reminder that this war would spare no soul. The kingdom's fate would be decided in its burning heart. Amid the chaos, Elias faced the antagonist in the shattered courtyard. Their blades clashed, sparks flying as lightning split the sky. The antagonist snarled, "This throne was mine by right." Elias struck back, voice trembling with fury. "You chose vengeance over family." Each swing carried the weight of generations, chains of betrayal binding their blood. The crown glowed, its power surging between them, threatening to consume both victor and vanquished. Their duel was not just for a throne, it was for the soul of their kingdom. As Elias faltered, the antagonist's blade swung for his heart. Gareth roared, throwing himself between them. Steel pierced flesh, blood spilling as Gareth gasped. "Not my king," he whispered, collapsing into Elias's arms. Elias cried out, fury and grief tearing him apart. The antagonist sneered, but even his eyes flickered at the sight of such devotion. Gareth's sacrifice was the fire that reignited Elias's will. Through the blood of his companion, he found the strength to rise again. Elias rose, Gareth's blood still warm on his hands. The crown glowed blindingly, its curse demanding submission. Elias shouted, "No more chains, no more lies." Power surged through him as he shattered the crown upon the ground. The antagonist staggered, his strength unraveling with the curse broken. Lightning struck, flames roared, and the battlefield shook with finality. Elias stood, no longer bound by legacy, but by choice. The crown's reign had ended, and in its ashes stood a king forged not by inheritance but by sacrifice. The storm eased into silence as smoke drifted over the ruined capital. Bodies of soldiers and civilians alike lay scattered among broken stone. Elias stood in the courtyard, Gareth's lifeless form at his feet. His voice cracked, "You gave all for me, and I will not waste your gift." The people gathered slowly, their faces pale with grief, yet their eyes fixed on him with fragile hope. The boy who had once trembled before the crown now stood as their king, not crowned by jewels, but by sacrifice and loss. Elara approached, her cloak torn, her blade chipped, her eyes full of sorrow. She whispered, "My heart is yours, Elias, but my duty binds me elsewhere." His chest tightened as he turned to her. "Then let love be the wound I carry." For a moment, their hands touched, lingering as if clinging to a life they could not share. Tears shimmered in her eyes before she pulled away, disappearing into the smoke. Love had blossomed, but fate's cruelty had claimed it before it could bloom. From the fading mist, the guardian beast appeared once more, its silver form glowing against the morning light. Its voice echoed like a distant hymn, The balance is restored, but every victory births another shadow. Elias raised his head, weary but unbroken. Then I will face whatever darkness comes. The beast's eyes glowed brighter for a moment before dissolving into the sky. Its presence lingered, not as comfort but as reminder. Peace was fragile, and destiny was never fully defeated. In the great hall, broken and charred, Elias stood before his people. Their eyes bore grief and hope alike. He said, "I am not the king the crown made, I am the king your courage forged." Murmurs turned to cries of loyalty, echoing through the ruined chamber. Though loss weighed on him, he saw their faith shine brighter than any jewel. For the first time, Elias stood not as a cursed heir, but as a leader who had chosen his own path. The kingdom was wounded, but not broken. As night fell once more, Elias stood alone atop the battlements, staring at the horizon. The air was still, yet a bell tolled faintly in the distance, though no tower stood to strike it. His breath caught, unease stirring in his chest. Was this victory only a prelude to another war? He gripped the hilt of his sword tighter, whispering, "If darkness comes again, it will not find me unready." The wind carried his words into the night, a vow written not in stone or crown, but in his soul.